Welcome to You and Me Conversations. You and Me is a series of queer BIPOC love stories. These modern entanglements are the kind of romances that make us lose sleep, love letters to the friendships we can't live without, and a celebration of our endless journeys of self-discovery. I wrote this book on a rooftop beneath the moonlight in conversation with my future self. Today, I'm in conversation with you and me. Today, I'm in conversation with Yashar, who is my not-so-little brother, co-founder of our inclusive leadership company, MINDSHIFT Leadership, and co-host of our podcast, The Shift, where we explore all the ways in which we can connect better. Yashar is a naturopathic doctor, certified brain-based executive coach, and a sought-after dog trainer. You can find all the links for connection in our show notes. So, you read some chapters. What do you think? There is a feeling of like having your brother read your romance novel. That's a little uncomfortable,
I
but
think I can handle it in my 40s. In my
yeah,
30s, no.
it's like very close. Not even like
Yeah,
in my
we
20s.
we just we just got
We
there.
just passed that threshold of being able to handle it. Okay.
I
Okay. So
think I can look beyond the steamy parts and and celebrate more of what the story is and what your creative art is. Um,
Mhm.
yeah, it was a great experience. Like I'm not saying that because I love you and I will always be your supporter. I really truly mean it. I started reading it as because I'm supposed to. This is my
Mhm.
sister's work. She sent me a few chapters. It's time for me to sit down and read. And I quickly found myself like really, really liking the writing, super excited by the character development, super interested in what's going to happen next, and like laughing out loud. And
Mhm.
and my son was like, "Dad, what are you laughing about?" I go, "Oh, nothing. I'm just reading Auntie Isla's book." He's like, "Okay." He was very confused.
Yeah.
Um, and I was just literally picture me like laying on the couch, reading and like laughing out loud.
Oh
And
my gosh, I
just
love
got
that.
yeah, I really got into it. I'm very proud of you. I'm very proud of your art. I'm very proud of your creative mind. I'm very proud of the way you know how to human. I've told you this before, I'll tell you again. You're very good at humaning and you're very good at understanding the connections and the humanity that is required to maintain those connections. Um, there's so much about you intertwined into the characters and your story. And, for somebody who doesn't know you, they're not going to know what is and isn't those parts of you. But of course, I know you well. And so it was very emotional for me, a lot of parts, because, I've lived a lot of those moments with you. So I'm sure it added a layer of a depth for me personally. But there's so much to dive into with each character, and there's so much to like want to know more about with each character. And like I said, it's funny, and it's like uh, a character development that I don't think I've really truly appreciated in other stories the way I
Yeah.
did in yours. And it's special, and I really enjoyed it. So yeah, thank you for sharing.
Oh, that means so much. And I feel like I want to like name the elephant in the room. You're not really the maybe target audience. You're not like a
Heck
sapphic
no. I was
romance.
gonna say that. I was
Yeah.
gonna say that, but I was like,
Like you're
I'm
not
not
a
gonna lead
sapphic
with that.
romance reader. Like as a straight cis male, you're not the target audience for a sapphic romance. So like having you connect to the piece in that way is, like feels really special to me.
Yeah, I thought of that a lot as I was reading it. I've thought of that a lot as I was preparing, more emotionally than even mentally for this conversation, like where I want to be in this conversation with my sister that I'm proud of, but also a published author that I'm respecting and their art. And so I thought of that a lot, and I was like, I am not who this book is for
Mhm.
on surface,
Mhm.
on paper, but I am absolutely who this book is for because I also want to lead with kindness and love and connection in my life. I want to choose love.
Mhm.
I want to be the version of me that will pick love when things are hard.
Mhm.
And so there are so many elements in each story that allude to all of those characteristics that I want to be as a human. And so I joked with you, I texted you and I said, I
Yeah.
want to be a lesbian.
I
Because
said, you are.
And you know, stripping back the joke,
Yeah.
it talks and speaks to the the love between characters, the respect, the curiosity, the interest, the shyness. You know, I
Mhm.
loved the shyness between the characters,
Mhm.
the confusion. There's so many layers. Again, like I'm just repeating myself because there's so much to dig into, and
Yeah.
I feel like each page you could stop and just reflect upon yourself and your own relationships and how
Yeah.
you handle moments like that. Like, of course, I don't know what it feels like to come out of the closet or what it feels like um, to be a an Iranian woman who's moved from Iran and now I'm exploring my sexuality in a different way. I don't know that. But what I
Mhm.
do know is immigration. What I
Mhm.
do know is like, do I fit in? What I
Mhm.
do know is there's a line in there, and I'm not going to say it obviously exact word for word, but about like how when we move from one place to another, one country to another, one neighborhood to another, we
Yeah.
start to like cover up our uniqueness in hopes of fitting in. Like
Yeah.
so many people
Yeah.
can feel that alone.
Yeah.
And it has nothing to do with sexuality. It's just, again, has to do with being a human and trying to say, hey, I don't know if I feel good and vulnerable. Excuse me. I don't know if I feel good being vulnerable
Yeah.
in this environment. And it takes courage. Um, and a huge theme in the stories is to be seen
Yeah.
in the vulnerability and in the courage. And whether that's through your intimate lover or whether that's through a friendship, um,
Mhm.
you know, it's all there. It's all within the story.
Yeah, I love that. That makes me so happy. Honestly, I think when you write in a little bit of a bubble and like your own silo, and you just are curious, like what's going to happen when someone reads these words, especially the chapters I sent you. Yeah, the characters are Iranian. So we have a personal relationship with that storyline, that like immigrant storyline, especially with these characters. So I love that you understood and if you felt it, even in, a sapphic romance. I think it also talks about kind of the nuances of that experience in a way that I don't want to spoil or anything, but that I actually thought like you would think of as well, as
Mm-hmm.
Mariam, the more masculine of center character, explores a relationship with Nilu, like they ask themselves questions, like of like how does this feel? That I think like again, I'm so glad you could like relate to and see. And obviously in all these stories there is other storylines, and in this one in particular, there's grief. There's the passing of their mother,
Mm-hmm.
which we know very well. And so I think obviously you would recognize the heartbeat of those conversations because we've explored them and experienced them. And I really was really mindful to make sure real life never left these stories. I wanted to be able to tell love stories in tandem with the real heartbeat of life, which means like the confusion, the search for belonging, the grief in this particular story. I didn't want to lose that heartbeat because I
Mm-hmm.
don't think we exist without it. And I wanted to see how do we hold these things together? How do we, you know, um, believe and hope while we're in pain and confused? And I think that that's what I was really trying to do is hold those in tandem.
Yeah, you did that very, very well. I think the only way that someone would miss any of that is if they are completely biased
Hmm.
towards the characters. And if
Yeah.
that's the case, they're probably not even picking up this book to begin with.
Yeah.
But if anyone's at all interested in, like I'm saying it again, in humanity
Yeah.
and the human connection, then there's plenty to sink your teeth in. There's plenty to hold on to, and it's so interesting because it is a reflective moment within each story for oneself. Um,
Hmm.
there's like this duality where like you ride the wave of the characters
Hmm.
and you're interested in the characters and their development. And as you're doing that, you're reflecting back onto yourself and asking yourself, or I'm asking myself, similar questions, and trying to see what the answers are. If it's the same as the character, if it's different. If it's different, why is it different? If it's the same, that's interesting. Like so, there's plenty to work on with that. And um, I really enjoyed that about it. And there's a question that popped up in my mind a few times about you,
Yeah.
Isla. And that was like, how did you decide? I'm sure
Yeah.
it's more than one answer to this, but how did you decide what parts of you you're going to include and how you're going to include that
Hmm.
in? And more specifically, again, knowing you well, I felt parts of you were in one character and other parts of you in another character. And
Mhm.
that was fun for me. It was like a little Easter egg hunt for me.
Yeah.
But I just had that question. It's like, how? Because I've never asked you this question.
Yeah,
Like,
no.
yeah, this is not like oh, I'm going to have a podcast with Ida. I'm going to ask her, as if we're setting this up. I'm genuinely interested. And I waited to this moment to ask you, like, how
Yeah.
did you decide
What to share?
how are you going to include certain parts of you and where and when?
Yeah, so it's true. I think if you know me really well, and I'm really blessed to have like family and friends that have known me for decades and decades and decades, you can find me in all the characters. Like people are always like, which one's you? I'm like, all of them and none of them, right? Like they're like, not me at all. And then you'll see me sometimes peek in each character. There are, over 20 characters in this whole novel. There was a lot of
Well,
characters.
you are a Gemini after
Yeah,
all,
I
so
know. So, I can do that. And the book is a Gemini, as we learned in the first episode of You and Me Conversations. If you want to grab that and watch that episode, Sushila Willis, who's my friend and astrologer, read the chart of the book, and the book is a Gemini. So I was like, of
wild.
course it is. So yeah, so I have this multitude of characters, and I'm none of them and all of them. And so I think I show up without really forethought, if I'm honest. It's just when they're at certain moments, I know what that feels like. So I bring that essence of feeling. Like I had this joke and nobody really likes me telling it, but I'm going to tell it anyways. I would start by saying I'm not a writer, I'm a feeler and I'm a thinker and I'm an observer. And I write through the lens of feeling, thinking and observing. I don't know where a comma goes. I can't keep a tense straight. That was kind of my thing. And so now people are like, don't say you're not a writer. So I am a I am a writer. I am now going to be a published author. And I come to writing through feeling. I have the line that like feelings are my muse. And so a lot of these characters have been developed through a feeling. Like I'll have a feeling, I'll think about it, and then I'll observe. I'll observe others in relation to that feeling. I'll observe how others like relate when it comes to that feeling. I'll watch that feeling from all the perspectives. And so one of those perspectives of that feeling will be my feeling. So I'll come to it because I'm going to also feel. And so it's not really a conscious choice. It's just like at a moment where I'm like, I need these characters or this storyline or this moment to go deeper. I ask myself, well, how would I feel? And that ends up on the page.
Very nice. Yeah. And again, it's not intrusive. It's very like as you said, like that you peek in and you peek out. And for me, when you share those parts of someone as they're going through an experience, like the way you write,
Hmm.
it like draws the reader in more.
Yeah.
It's like more curiosity, more depth to unravel. Um, and so yeah, superb writing. Seriously, superb writing.
That's so
I'm
great.
I'm really 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 excited to read the rest of the stories.
Hmm.
And I'm extremely excited for who this book is for on paper.
Yes.
I think that's another feeling that came over me, and I was emotional about it, like excited and also tearful, because it's
Yeah.
like even makes me emotional saying it now. It's like somebody's going to really need to hear the story, and
Yeah. I
that's
know.
so cool.
Yeah.
um if I, again, as a cis male, am reading this and feeling so deeply connected to the storyline, like I can't imagine if you're even slightly confused, concerned, frustrated, working through the lens of who you are, who you want to be, who you want to love, how you're
Mhm.
represented, how others see you, whether that's strangers or family. Like I know, I don't even think, I know these words will like pierce through all of that and straight to the heart of the matter. And it will either rip you open in the most beautiful way and you're going to see the light, or it's going to rip you open and you're going to struggle with those narratives and those
Mm-hmm.
ideas, and then you're going to see the beautiful light. And so that was also a huge surprise for me reading the story, how much I felt like you're championing this conversation for individuals who may not have another access point
Mm-hmm.
to to discuss these matters.
Oh my gosh, that means so much. I really appreciate it. I experienced that when where Someplace Generous was published, which was an anthology by Generous Press that I was privileged enough to have a chapter in. And that one story that's now a chapter in the full manuscript, Luna and Nura came out. I got like these DMs and these messages from people that I didn't know that were like, "This is my story. Like, you wrote my story. You wrote my story." And then I think that's what changed it all for me because it was I just like remembered that it's beyond me. Like I create this. Like they're born through me like children. But then they have their own whole existence and purpose and their own interactions and just like our kids, like so much of them will be without us and they will flourish and impact in ways that we will never see and know, and it's just a ripple. So I think when I was writing, I just thought like I'm going to make this ripple as intentional as I can, and then hope that it reaches who it needs to reach.
Yeah, and I'm sure it will.
Yeah. So there was also some sibling dynamics in the chapters I sent you. How was that to read? Was that fun?
Yeah, like so again, interestingly enough, like that was maybe the most obvious theme.
Yeah.
Those weren't the parts that like grabbed my attention.
Okay.
And that's
Yeah.
why I keep getting so excited for the stories, because it
Yeah.
really surprised me, all the
Yeah.
parts that did grab my attention.
Yeah.
Um it made me giggle. It made me like,
Yeah.
I know what's going on here.
Yeah.
I think I went in thinking, maybe selfishly, like I'm
Hmm.
going to pick out the parts that I understand and I get.
Yeah.
And then it's just like a tsunami wave of interest and emotion came over me about
Mm.
everything else.
Yeah.
And that's, yeah, and that's special. That's special, especially because I, I know you and I feel like I know you well, but I just
Mhm.
didn't know this part of you.
Yeah.
So I got to know a whole impressive, creative, intellectual, emotional part of you that like I thought I know you well. And then I get to like experience this, which is it's cool. Like
Yeah.
it was a revealing.
Oh, that's so cool. I mean, I think I met myself through writing it as
Mm,
well.
mm,
I think that I also didn't know this part of me. I started writing the stories not for publishing. Like I just was writing them as part of my writing group and just for, but then people like them. People asked me to finish them and people said, "What happens to these characters?" I was like, "I don't know." And so as I explored and learned about them, I think I learned about myself. And I think mostly what I learned is that I love writing. Like when I felt so content in those hours, just me and my computer.
hmm
And that in itself was a gift to love that bubble of creation and kind of be introduced to it in this way and then love to live there. Like I lived with these characters for 4 years now. Um, I'm not even gonna get rid of them. I'm writing a sequel now. I just started to write the sequel. So I'm like, who's gonna come into the sequel? What happened in 2 to 3 years through these characters? And that's what I'm exploring now. So yeah, I've definitely learned through them and with them as well as like we co-created this, the characters and I. And um, yeah, I think I didn't know. I think I couldn't have known until I grew up with them.
hmm Yeah, I can totally see that. I can see how
Yeah.
that develops as you go. There's a line at the end of one of the chapters, paraphrasing perhaps, and it says, "Sometimes love wins."
Yeah.
Um, there's a huge theme of love
Hmm.
throughout the entire book. Why was that so important? And not from a, again, superficial landscape of like a
Yeah.
romance novel, like there's
Yeah.
love, but there's a deep, deep, deep sense of the word love. and how it has various shades.
Yeah.
And right, the line of "sometimes love wins." I felt like that was very important,
Hmm.
um, as a finishing line. So
Yeah.
tell me about that. Tell me your thoughts around that, and why that played such a central role in the entire book.
Yeah. So I think number one, Love Wins is like because these are all queer love stories. So reminding us, especially in the current climates, that our stories matter and they deserve to be seen and celebrated. And that is going to always be the main line of the book, that queer love is valid and can take all the space and is joyful and desire filled and doesn't need to be explained and justified
Mm-hmm.
in ways that certain the current political climate like demands.
Mm-hmm.
It's like that's not the future I accept. So I think that's one main way that that's why that line is there. And then the other one is because I wrote this book when started writing this book when I was in separation and a divorce. And I needed to write to reimagine. I wrote to reimagine. I needed to believe in the possibility of love beyond my present moment. And so the book is kind of a manifestation also, like, like what would it be like to care for each other, to fight for each other, to live in love in a just world? What does that look like? And so I wrote stories that told that story. And let's have fun at the same time. Like the lightness was a critical component, a critical ingredient of it too. Like someone who constantly feels like they're walking Mount Everest to like come to every point of their life, I wanted to give the gift of lightness,
Mm-hmm.
of ease, of peace, of joy, of desire. Those are equally and maybe even more healing and medicine for love as well. So yeah, that's how it kind of came about. I think the other part that like we can even go into is that this is a love story. It's a commercial contemporary romance. But I have a background in human rights and social justice. We have a company in which we teach people how to relationship better. Like it can be called leadership, it can be called this and that, but essentially at the core, we create relationships, shifting the way we relate to ourselves and others. And
Mm-hmm.
the stories are not separate from that. Like
Mm-hmm.
Sushila, who we just talked about, the astrologer who read the chart, joked with me and was like, I feel like you're coaching your characters. And I was like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I can't not coach them after, a decade of coaching individuals to relationship better. When I'm writing characters, even though we're all complex and messy and confused, I really was looking through the lens of like harm reduction as we coach our clients. Like, yes, you're angry. Yes, you're hurt. Yes, you're confused. And what does it look like when we step into caring for each other, tending to each other? What does it look like when we get better connected with our best selves? How would we
Mm-hmm.
show up now in the relationship? I couldn't be separate from that when I was developing the characters either.
Mm-hmm. And there's a sense of responsibility. And
Yeah.
I know you've talked about this a little bit, so maybe expand on the sense of responsibility even when creating entertainment with the lens you just spoke to.
Well, I think entertainment especially has a huge responsibility. It is the most accessible form of art in the sense that anyone can pick it up and it permeates faster and into us. So the messages I'm giving in this form are 10 times, I think, more important than something that is for a specific group of people that are already filtered through. So certain beautiful pieces of literature are amazing and magnetic and really deep, but the pool of people who are going to read it are already kind of aligned with the views. So you're already preaching to the choir in that way. So it's impactful and beautiful and it's great to pick up those things, but but entertainment, like think of the shows you binge, think of the books
Mhm.
you binge, like the ways in which we just kind of grab something and want to feel good. Those are the places where those messages permeate into us faster. So there's so many times I want to binge a show when I'm into it, and then there's a moment of cringe, especially when you are coming from populations that are misrepresented and not represented. You'll always be in a moment in a book or a show where you're like, oh, like that's not really how it goes, or that feels weird, or that feels, even upsetting because
Mhm.
that's so harmful to my culture, my religion, my whatever it is that you've harmed. But then you just want to like enjoy the show and not think of it in those lights. And so I think that entertainment holds a real responsibility that I don't know if we take as seriously as I would like. And I think that it provides an opportunity where we can still have that kind of bingeable content by remaining aligned and impactful with our values and ensuring that the messages we're putting across are there to create the kind of futures and relationships we want.
There's definitely a rebellious nature to
Hmm.
the book and the
Yeah.
stories, and like it's like a rebellious nature, but with a cause.
Yeah.
And that's a also a really fun part of working through the stories. I guess my other question for you would be like, when is the film going to be made out of all?
From your lips to the universe's ears, right?
Yeah, I'm looking forward. So when's the exact date again when it's available to the public?
So it's available for pre-order now. The official pub date is May 26th,
Yeah,
2026.
yeah, I'm very very excited. This it's gonna be a fun summer for a lot of people.
That sounds so good. And yes,
Yeah,
actually, everyone who's read it says that as well. They're like, when is it going to be a limited TV series? So
yeah.
l- let's get it. Let's
Let's
get
get it. Let's go. Yeah, I'll be an extra. I'll be an extra on set.
it.
Yeah. It's very stereotypical kind of end off a conversation question, but I was actually really curious. Is there any like message or final message you'd like the reader just to walk away? I picture them like flipping that last page and then kind of sitting back and putting the book down. And I can't imagine anyone's going to do that and then just stand up, be like, all right, I got to take out the garbage now. I feel like it's one of those like, okay, and
Mhm.
and they kind of sit in that moment.
Yeah.
What do you want the reader, despite their background, despite their sexual orientation, despite their storylines, their narratives, their relationships, what do you want that reader to feel in that like last moment of, huh?
I hope you feel seen. I hope you feel seen.
Yeah, that is, again, as somebody who's only read a few chapters, that is probably exactly what anyone who does read it and spends any time reading honestly through the storylines will feel. Um, you've done your job. You've done your job. I'm very, very, very proud of you as a little brother and just as a consumer of your art. I'm very proud of you, and I look forward to where this journey takes you and your readers.
Thank
Congratulations.
you. Thank you.